4 years ago, I built this aluminium DIY rooftop deck and ladder from scratch with just basic hand tools you can find in pretty much any garage. In this video, I'm going to review how they have all held up over the 4 years of abuse, from the welds to the connections and everything in between. So stay tuned and let's see how it's all held up. This video is brought to you by my brand new online course, Vanbuild Academy. More on that later. So if you haven't seen the video already, how I built this rooftop deck and ladder, I'm gonna link the videos here so you can go check them out. But essentially what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the deck off, I'm gonna take the solar panels off, and I'm gonna get a good look at all my connections. Because I pop riveted this whole roof rack together with aluminium pop ribs, I was getting a lot of comments saying, oh, the aluminium, it's too soft, you should use stainless steel pop rivets. So I really want to check it out. I'm also going to get a good look at the aluminium ladder that I built, because that was built a little bit differently, where I used a technique called aluminium brazing to reinforce the joints. Again, a lot of people were saying that aluminium brazing isn't a very strong method and it might crack over time, so we're going to check it out. So the first thing I noticed when I come up here, and one of the only things that I didn't install stainless steel or aluminium on the top, was these tie down D-shackle lashings. They were actually galvanized steel and they have not held up very well. They are all rusty and quite stiff. So I did actually buy some stainless steel ones to replace this. So everything on the deck now will be stainless steel, and then we won't have this problem with it rusting. Okay, so first thing I would do is just remove all the deck head screws I screwed into the aluminium frame. Take all the decking boards off. Let's take a look. So now that I've got all the decking boards off, I'm just taking a look at how the treated pine decking actually withheld from the harsh Australian sun and, you know, really high UV, and they've actually withheld pretty well. I did put a decking stain and oil on them before they went up. Nothing out of the ordinary. There is some cracking in the wood, but pretty much that's it. I'm going to probably coat them again before I put them back up, and they'll probably last me another 5 years easy. Okay, so firstly, let's have a look at the aluminium ladder and how that turned out. It is still super duper strong. This thing has never moved an inch since I installed it. I haven't had to touch it. I haven't had to fix anything up. So I got to take the side ladder off because it's connected to the roof rack frame. So it was just 3 easy bolts on the pinch weld here, 3 bolts on the roof rack, and the whole thing just comes off. And while it's off, I'll probably give it a nice new paint job too, just to spruce it up. It's going to be a lot easier when it's off. The ladder has also fared extremely well, and this is one I wasn't sure about. I hadn't seen anyone do anything like this online, so this was a full trial and error, and it seems to have paid off because the aluminium brazing has held its own. Super happy. All the joints around where I pop riveted, and then I went along and aluminium brazed around just to reinforce it, are still super strong. Nothing is cracked. The only thing where it's been hit really hard here on this side with like gravel rash, the paint has chipped a little bit, but it hasn't even gone down to the etch primer. It's just chipped the black paint off. Definitely something I would recommend building the way that I've built it. It's just come out so well. Very happy with that. That gets a 10 out of 10. Okay, the solar panels are off and I can pretty much see all the exposed roof. At a first glance, the roof rack has just held up perfectly. The roof itself, a little worse for wear. There are quite a little rust spots. I think that's a factor of this van was parked pretty much at the beach for more or less 2 years, and the salt water and the sea spray on the roof does wonders for a paint job. I'm going to take the roof rack off now, and the only way I can do that is by drilling out the pop rivets, which I might actually change if I wanted to do this again. I did pop rivet them in. I might use the stainless steel screw method that I used to put in the solar panels, because that has held up perfectly as well. With the spring washers, they didn't move an inch. Okay, I'm lowering it. Do you want to make sure it's straight? Just keep on going. Are you dreaming of van life but overwhelmed by the conversion process? Don't worry, you're not alone. Building a van like this can be exciting, but it also comes with a lot of planning and decisions. So that's where I come in. I've converted multiple vans myself and learned from my mistakes. Mistakes I'll show you how to avoid. My online van build course is designed for DIY enthusiasts of all experience levels, helping you save time, money, and stress throughout your project. So here's what you'll get. Everything in one place. The course provides all the information you need from choosing your perfect van, planning your water, gas, and electrical systems to completion. So with detailed video tutorials, I will guide you through every step of the conversion process so you can build your van right the first time, as well as having tons of included schematics, diagrams, calculators, and 3D models. I'll help you save valuable time by having a clear plan before you even start building. Click the link in the description to find out more and how to enroll in the course. Okay, so now that the roof rack is off, I've been able to have a much better inspection to see how it has handled the 4 years of bumpy roads, wear and tear, being out on the road. Everything seems pretty good. All the brackets are still tight, the pop rivets, none have really come loose. All the pop rivets are still really, really strong. The cross members are all still straight. None of them have actually bowed, so that's really good. The only thing that I've really noticed, and I don't know how you would really fix it unless you went all stainless or all aluminium, is there is a little bit of galvanic corrosion where the stainless steel deck screws have gone into the aluminium. Galvanic corrosion is when you get two different metals and you put them in contact for a long time. It gets like a white powder and it is very slow going. While the whole thing is off now, I'm gonna give the whole thing a new paint job because I actually painted this in situ while it was on the roof. I only ever really painted around the corners and stuff you would see. But now that it's all off, I'm going to sand everything again, give it all a nice paint job before I put it back up. Okay, I've just taken the angle brackets off the spotlight light bar and these things are absolutely toast. They look like a wafer. The metal has just completely flaked away. That probably wouldn't have lasted too much longer. I'm glad I picked up on that. Okay, I've given the roof a proper pressure clean and wash so I can inspect kind of the rust and damage, what needs to be fixed. The worst part is around where this seam sealer is. I don't know why, but it seems to be a common theme with vans where the two panels meet on a van and it's joined with a adhesive sealant. It's completely rusting around the sealant. So I'm gonna probably have to remove all the sealant, find out how bad it is, bring it back to bare metal, prime it, and then coat it again, and then put a new seam sealer on. And there's another common theme on this van as well, around these portholes. So these are just glued in portholes. There's a whole bunch of them on the van and they all seem to rust around the edge, and I'm pretty sure that's from the panels moving over time. It breaks the original seal and then they start to rust. There's like 5 or 6 of those that probably need to be pulled up. And then lastly, there's just a whole bunch of little rust spots, some worse than others, that I'm gonna have to grind back with my Dremel. But a lot of it is actually under these big long beams, so I'm gonna probably have to take those off too. All right, so I've had a bit of a play on these spots here where the rust was just spotting on the paint. I've hit it with my Dremel and ground out off the rust. I'm gonna make sure that I vacuum everything up. I don't wanna leave any metal filings on the roof for it to start again. That's probably a reason a lot of the times people have rust spots on their van is from grinding on the roof and then leaving the little filings behind. It'll start to corrode onto the paint and then rust through. So you really wanna make sure if you can't pick everything up, give it a good blowdown, and then probably the last resort is hit it with the hose and get everything off the van you possibly can. So the process I'm gonna take here, hit it with some rust converter, and that's gonna get all the rust that I can't get, all the microscopic rust that's in the pits of the metal, because if I don't convert the rust and then paint over it, it'll start to eat itself from the inside out again. Now you can see how this rust converter works. It actually converts the rust that I couldn't get out with the grinder into like a black element, which is then able to be painted. See all these little spots here, black little rust spots that I couldn't get in. If I was to paint directly over the top of that, the rust would come back up through the paint, and I'll be doing this all again in a few months. I'm gonna hit it with etch primer and then my top coat. I'm gonna do that on all the rust spots around the van, but the most importantly, I'm gonna have to try and fix this one on the seam sealer. So let's see how bad that is actually first. Right, so I've just peeled off this old seam sealer where the two panels of the metal meet, and you can see that rust has been forming actually from the outside in. That's a big relief because that would have been a big problem. So this thing is just coming off really easy. I can pretty much just pull it, and I'm using a plastic scraper so I don't scratch any of the actual paint. Same principle, I'm just gonna sand this back down to bare metal, hit it with the rust converter, and then I'm gonna prime it, paint it, and then seal it with a Sikaflex I have, which is specifically designed for seam sealing. And while I'm up here, I may as well just put a new layer of sealant on my vent while everything's off and easy to reach. It'll prevent me having to do it for another 5 or 6 years. To take the old sealant off my fan, I'm using this really handy tool. It's like a silicone remover for bathrooms, and it's plastic so it doesn't scratch paint. And it's really quite good. It's a really hard plastic, and it gets right under there, and you can kind of just peel all the sealant off. In this case, it's polyurethane sealant, and does a really good job. And then I'm just gonna clean it up and put a new bead on. It was looking a bit scruffy, a little bit decolored, getting a little bit dry, so it's worth doing it again while I've got the opportunity. All right, so I've just cleaned up all the rust with the grinding disc. I've cleaned the surface with a wax and grease remover, got rid of all the crap, and now I'm coating it with the rust converter, which is gonna get in all that little bit of rust that I couldn't sand off, and then I should be able to prime it. And I'm gonna use an etch primer, and then I'm gonna top coat it. So I've just finished spray painting the whole roof now with the white paint. It doesn't have to match the actual paint color because you're not going to see it anyway. All right, so I've painted the seam now and it's ready for sealing. And the sealant I'm using is Sikaflex 252, which is a high strength structural adhesive sealant, and it is designed for the seam sealing. So it's like high vibration, high movement joints. It even has a little picture of the bus on the cover and where it can be used around the roof seam joints. So I've taped off the area, and I'm gonna run a nice bead down it, and then I'm gonna smooth it over with my finger and some terps. So terps is how you clean this stuff up, so it's kind of what keeps it nice and wet. And then I'm gonna peel the tape off while it's still wet and get a really nice clean seal. Now I'm just gonna go and glue back in these little grommets for the roof. I took all the old glue off. It was all rock hard, and that's pretty much why I had it all rusted around it. It wasn't sealing water anymore. So it's gonna be as simple as just using the same Sikaflex, and then I can start putting the roof rack back up. So the one big change I would make to this roof rack if I did it from the start, which I'm making now, is I'm going to increase the space from the roof. So the way I originally got over that curvature of the roof is I got these hard plastic shims, and you see I had to cut a bit of a chamfer in it because of the angle of the roof isn't flat. This was originally a 20 mil shim. I wanted to increase it to 30 mils, so I bought a couple of these 10 millimeter shims. I got 8 of them. So all I'm doing is drilling a hole, gluing them to this one and putting them in place, and that'll give it another 10 mil over the top of the roof, which gives it just that little bit extra space between the cross members of the roof rack and the top of the roof, which I think I'm gonna be much happier with. So if you are watching this video before you make your roof rack, I would suggest, increasing it to about 30 millimeters of height. So the last thing I'm gonna do before I put the roof rack back on is give the entire roof a bit of a polish with some polishing wax. That's gonna do 2 things. It's gonna get rid of all the metal fragments I might have left up here, and it's also gonna stop a lot of dirt sitting on the roof. Because the roof rack doesn't really get any water when it rains, all the dirt that gets stuck here kind of stays here, and it gets pretty grotty. That can also cause a lot of the rusting problems. If some metal filings get stuck up here, they're never going to get washed away. So giving the roof a good wax should help prevent that. It's not a permanent fix obviously, but it's going to help and also protect the roof for a longer period of time. Just help me balance it. So I ordered some stainless steel brackets to replace these destroyed carbon steel for the LED light bar, so I'm going to install that now. I've also replaced these plugs with MC4 connections, so if I do need to take the light bar off again for whatever reason, I don't have to chop the wires. Okay, so that is pretty much it. Everything is back up and it looks $1 million. So hopefully it's going to last another 4 years easy, but most likely longer. If you like this video or if you have any questions, remember to leave a comment below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Like the video if you got any use out of it, and remember to subscribe for more videos like this. If you want to learn more about the online course that I am launching very shortly, go to the website saltyvanventures.com. There's more information there where you can sign up for the early bird special deal. But until then, I'll see you next time.